Hi, everyone. This is Jim Hoft with Gateway Pundit. This morning, I'm really pleased to have, of course, Patty McMurray, who's with Gateway Pundit with me. And especially we have Representative Rachell Smit, who is doing a fantastic job in Michigan. She broke some news on Friday, and we're going to talk about that today. What we're going to cover today is a story that Gateway Pundit first broke back in August of 2023. And that is this GBI Strategies outfit that was operating in Michigan in 2020. They had several offices across the state, and they were being investigated by the local police after there was this massive dump of fraudulent voter registrations in the Muskegon office on the west side of the state. The police started investigating. They went to the offices near Detroit and found burner phones and gift cards, and they actually found silencers in a gun case that were left there, which was pretty unbelievable. And they found what looked like a voter fraud manufacturing outfit. Now, that's my way to express this, and that's my opinion. But of course, there needs to be much more investigations. We did break this story, and that was thanks to Lori Skibo and Phil O'Halloran, who first gave us this tip. And there was a couple things about this I wanted to mention, and I'll turn it over to Patty. One is that this group was operating in actually 9 different locations that we saw from the police reports, 9 different states, and then also the District of Columbia. So this was this group was operating widespread. What's fascinating is that Patty found recently that the person who was the operating manager, we'll call him, Gary Bell, he also was operating out of Las Vegas a few years previous to this, and working with Harry Reid. So he's been doing this type of an operation for years and years. I suspect this has been going on for a long, long time. We also found that this was tied completely to the Democrat Party. We didn't find any links at all to any Republicans at all. We also then found that the police had turned this over to the FBI, and that's where it went to die, as far as we know. We have heard nothing about this investigation since then. And so anyway, Patty, you want to take over? And
I wanted to mention that that Stephen Morse, who works for Attorney General Attorney General Dana Nessel's office, was investigating the key suspect in this GBI Strategies story. She's the person that dropped off the thousands of fraudulent applications or registrations to Ann Misha's office in Muskegon. And while he's talking to her, Stephen Morse actually tells her that several crimes were committed. And I think that's really important to point out, because since then, the media has made kind of a big deal about the GBI Strategies story not being anything to be concerned about or not being true. They've called it fake news, even though the story that we did was based 100% on the police reports that we received. And so Stephen Morse himself tells her that crimes were committed, yet nobody was arrested, nobody was charged. And that seems to be the narrative that the media continues to use, that this story was really a nothing burger, because even though it was a statewide investigation and they found thousands of fraudulent registrations, that there was nothing to this story because nobody was ever arrested or nobody was charged with any crimes. And so I think it's important to point out that Attorney General Nessel's investigator says that there indeed were crimes committed. And then in the police report, Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson's investigator Corey Ames talks about the fraudulent registrations that they found. So he confirms in the police report that they did find fraudulent registrations from GBI Strategies. So there were crimes committed. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that before we show this video clip.
I asked one of the township clerks that I'm familiar with. Mm-hmm. I said, so what happens if you've got me as a voter registered at my address, mm-hmm. right? And then someone turns in a false application for me at either a different address or just bad information.
Right.
And then I go to vote. She said, well, we know right away if something doesn't look right, They call.
I was going to say they call. The city clerk will call.
Yeah, they'll
do.
call and
And
they'll
that's what Ann
say,
said. She said,
hey, we got this
"Well,
application for you to register to vote, and the signature doesn't match, the date of birth doesn't match, the social doesn't match, something doesn't match.
Correct, she told me that.
And they clear it up that way.
Yes.
But in these bigger cities, I don't know that they're doing that.
I know they're not. They can't be doing it in
That's
Detroit.
what I thought. No, they can't be doing it in
They're
Detroit.
not doing it.
And I don't think
Muskegon.
I don't think they'd be doing it in Flint or Yipsy either.
No, and I know they're not. Because you got to think about, y'all a small community up here, which I love Muskegon.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, if y'all can catch this here, I know for sure they're not. They're not. They're not.
Yeah,
It's
and that was just because that
it's too
clerk
much.
was paying attention.
Yeah,
In some of these places, I'm sure they have dozens of clerks. You know?
But they're not. They're not properly doing, like Ann said, she's been there 20, 30 years, so she knows Muskegon. So
But again, we don't understand why the canvassers would turn in false applications.
So this next video that we wanted to show is a video of Ramon Jackson, the advocate's testimony in front of the Michigan House Election Integrity Committee that's chaired by Representative Smit, where Ramon Jackson, he's been investigating with Pastor Sewell voters who he knows personally who have been voted for that have never registered to vote. So somebody somewhere is registering people to vote falsely using the names of people that have moved out of the city of Detroit, either within the city to a different location or out of state. And once these people make this move, they are registered to vote back in the city of Detroit by somebody or some entity. And in many cases, these people are having votes cast in their name. And he really noticed it happening in 2020 and again in 2022. And he also has evidence that it happened in 2024. And this is important to bring this up because this really ties into why it's important to stop these fraudulent voter registration rings, not just in Michigan, but across the country, because these fraudulent registrations turn into votes and they cancel out votes of registered people. And so this is a really big deal. And it's important that Ramon and Pastor Lorenzo Sewell are bringing attention to this in Detroit because it seems to be a really big problem. And that's really where elections are won and lost in the city of Detroit. And Ramon said during his testimony that Alyssa Slotkin won the election by winning so many votes in the city of Detroit when she was running in the 2024 election that Trump won. So Trump won the election, and the Republican Senate candidate, Mike Rogers, lost to Alyssa Slotkin. And in his testimony, Ramon says that Alyssa Slotkin didn't even need to come to the city of Detroit because she knew she'd get enough votes there. And so that's really important to point out. So this is the video of Ramon's testimony.
If you go to the next document, I have a affidavit from John F. Kennedy in here, where he was fraudulently registered after he moved away out of Detroit, never been registered, never voted, and they voted for him in 3 elections since he's been gone. Right now, he still lives out of Detroit at the same address he moved out of Detroit in 2018, and they register him back to his Detroit address. He's still at his address that he moved out of Detroit to. He don't know nothing about voting in 2020 and in 2022. So he voted absentee in the 2020 election without his knowledge. They come back and use him again in the August 2022 primary, come back again, use him again in the November 22 primary.
On Tuesday, Rachell Smit, who is the Speaker Pro Tem and the chair of the newly formed House Election Integrity Committee, interviewed Ramon Jackson, who's an activist in the Detroit area. He's known as the advocate because he advocates for the people in the city of Detroit. And he was accompanied by Pastor Lorenzo Sewell, who has become a phenomenon. He's this amazing pastor with a lot of energy, and he's really very much committed to rooting out voter fraud in the city of Detroit. And Rachell was great in the hearing because she asked some important questions. But their testimony was really powerful, and since then, Rachell has submitted a letter with 21 additional signatures. From other all Republican House members, the Michigan State representatives, and asking Attorney General Pam Bondi to investigate GBI Strategies and other voter registration organizations. And I'm going to ask Rachell now to just kind of give us her reason for submitting this letter and what you hope to achieve by sending this letter to Attorney General Bondi.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for having me, and it's good to be on here. It's just critical that we do what we can in our due diligence in Michigan here with keeping our elections safe and secure. And obviously, this is something that Jocelyn Benson just totes about, how it's the most safe and secure election, and she's done such a great job doing that. But I disagree with that very, very strongly. There's just a lot of issues that we see here. And when this story broke, I mean, I was a former clerk in 2020. I was actually a township clerk myself at that time. I had not known that this was going on. I didn't know until the story broke. And then all of a sudden the police report is out there and we're realizing the magnitude of this. Clearly, this is a ring that is going on in multiple states, primarily the swing states, and that's an issue. So this needed to be raised to the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi and have their eyes on this, and an investigation be conducted, because this is very disastrous to our electoral process, first and foremost. And so it's critical that we get that out there and we can just start doing what we can here in Michigan. So it's part of kind of building our case and showing all the receipts that have come forward and the work that people have done and the research that's been out there in the last several years too, that we show the public what these irregularities and issues and fraud is that's going on in our election. So hopefully with this letter, it will get to them and they can look into this. And it is, we believe, a much larger scale than just hear what's going on in Michigan. So it's very important. I'm happy to see so many colleagues join on. I should note there wasn't a lot of time given on this because we have to act very swiftly. We're already 3 months into our term here. And with President Trump in office, in his new administration, we just need to keep moving as fast as we can. So, and we're on spring break in the legislature as well. So there was like 24 hours notice to get this word out, but we're serious about looking into the fraud and investigate here in Michigan, do what we can.
That's amazing. Rachell, I was going to mention too in our opening that you're absolutely correct. This GBI was operating in several states, but now we also know, and Patty has done some reporting on this too. In Ohio, there's a group that's called Black Fork, and a couple of the counties down there had meetings where they're lifting up a stack of these ballots, that are about 3/4 of an inch thick. Registrations. Thank you. And so they're doing investigations in Ohio also with this other group. And we also know that before the election this year, or not this year, in 2024, in Pennsylvania, there were several counties that also were reporting these what they believed were fraudulent registrations. And that group was called Field Plus Media. It's out of Arizona. It's not even from Pennsylvania. They were operating in Pennsylvania in several counties. So I think you're absolutely correct. And that's why this is so important, because we don't know the extent of where these groups are operating. I suspect they're everywhere. I just think I think we'd be stunned if we found out exactly where they are operating. They're different names. Patty and I found that a lot of these groups use strategies at the end of their name. So that was kind of a clue for us. We found some groups like that were also doing this voter registrations, but we have no idea how extensive this is. And we also have no idea how many of these fraudulent ballots are being used in elections. And we have no idea then how this affects the Democrat turnout, and actually the Democrat voting base. We just don't have any idea, because until we do this investigation, which thankfully you have sent to Pam Bondi. I had a question though. You were a clerk in 2020. Yeah. We had an individual reach out to us, and as Patty mentioned, it was a private Facebook group for clerks in Michigan. and they were all reporting these different things that were happening and these packages they were getting. But you weren't even invited on this private Facebook group and knew nothing about it.
No, I did not. I found that out obviously later, I believe probably through your work, Patty. So, our Clerks Association in Allegan County had our own little group, but nothing suspicious like this was going on or any talk of it. So I was unaware of this statewide clerk group on Facebook, but it's not surprising. I mean, why though did more not speak out or say something or raise the question and the alarm of these are weird things going on? And I think that a lot of it had to do with, if I remember right, maybe Patty, you can correct me, like a lot of these boxes were coming in as like PPE stuff. And they were just box loads full of the voter registrations.
Yeah, those actually came from the Secretary or Board of Elections. The boxes with the fake registrations or the late registrations.
Okay.
That they had in their possession for some of them 6 months, and they came mixed in with face masks and PPE equipment. And the box was labeled PPE equipment. And when they opened it, they were stunned to find these voter registrations. But those actually came from Jocelyn Benson, from the Board of Elections. And
what she did in 2020 was violation of the law. That is out of her jurisdiction to send out voter applications. She just mass mailed them to everybody on the voter rolls. I mean, I received a lot of those, but our county clerk, thankfully, is a conservative, and we were told, if you get any of these, I want to know about this. And so I reported whatever ones I received to him. But yeah, and that caused confusion amongst the community in our district. People were like, why are you sending me these voter registrations? We're already, our applications to vote, excuse me, we've already received ours. So that right there caused distrust, in my opinion. They thought it was coming from the clerks. It was not. Then we had to kind of clean up her problem that she did, that violating the law and totally out of her jurisdiction to do so. But that just says something right there too. Why? What is the Secretary of State, whose role that is not, this has never happened before, send out voter or absentee applications to every voter on the rolls,
including 16-year-olds. There were individuals that were not even of voting age, and not even really close to voting age, that were receiving these applications to vote. Yep. Or to register to vote.
Yeah. There were so many things that were problems and concerns, and ultimately what spurred me to run for office for state house, because I thought, what's going on here, on top of the extreme COVID overreach measures that our governor took too. But I could go on all day. I know we're here to talk about the GBI stuff. So
right. Well, I had another question for you. In your letter to Pam Bondi, you also mentioned some other additional violations. In addition to having GBI investigate it, you talked about some of the 501c3s that are supporting their work. Can you talk to us about that? That's part of your letter to Pam Bondi as well.
Yeah, that's a real problem. So we've got all these 501c3 nonprofit organizations that are out here doing partisan work, working with big Democrat super PACs and mega donors, and getting these registrations out there in a way that is violation of the federal law of what these nonprofit organizations are able to do. These are tax exempt entities, and here they're just funneling money through here and in doing fraudulent activity, partisan work. Well, that's what would be considered the fraudulent part of that. So that's a problem too. We don't want to have our nonprofit charitable organizations having this bad name. I mean, that's what's going on.
Right. Yeah, I think that we've done enough research. The second police report that we got that was more unredacted than the first, they actually referred to GBI Strategies as Black PAC. So there doesn't seem to be a line that's blurred there between GBI Strategies and Black PAC. So obviously, the FBI took over the investigation. We don't have any more information, but that's certainly worth exploring, because Black PAC was their largest funder, GBI Strategies' largest funder. But in the police report, they refer to GBI Strategies as Black PAC. So that's also an interesting thing to know
Yeah.
because these organizations they are funding these people. And it's also worth mentioning that Senator Gary Peters, who's for whatever reason decided to retire, he and Joe Biden were the two individual campaigns that were funding GBI Strategies when they were working in Michigan under the name Empower Michigan.
Yeah.
So that's also curious.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing this little phase of U.S. reps that aren't going to be running again for re-election. Why do you think that is? I think it's because they know what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And as they should, because there's been so much corruption for far too long going on. And I'm just grateful that we can start speaking out about this and showing the public and doing what we can, because it's very important. And we couldn't do it without your work too. I mean, again, that's something I didn't know until reading from you about Gary Peters and his connection with Empower Michigan.
Right.
It's a lot of
and also
doing this research.
Right. And also he was actually named the chair of the DSCC, which was the largest funder of GBI Strategies, who now we believe has taken on a different acronym. And I'll be doing some work on that as well. But there's another organization who's kind of filled that void when GBI Strategies became under investigation by the FBI. So
yeah, my understanding is they are no longer under that name, which they probably have numerous names that are all tied to it, right, through these nonprofits. So that's what needed to be pointed out to Attorney Pam Bondi as well. And I'm sure they know this, but just having other states coming forward and just further solidifying, okay, this is what is going on, is our hope that they can take a serious look into this quickly.
Right. Yeah. Well, Dan Bongino, when the story first broke on his podcast, he called the GBI Strategies story the best evidence of mass voter fraud that he's seen in the 2020 election to date. He said the Gateway Pundit has the receipts.
Mm-hmm.
They've got the police report. It shows what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the time he was imploring something to be done about it. And hopefully, we can get him to take a look at GBI Strategies now that he called it the most important evidence of voter fraud in the 2020 election.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Rachell, have you heard from any U.S. representatives or anyone else in the state about this GBI Strategies? And are you aware if Congress is doing any investigating itself?
I have not heard from any of our U.S. reps or anyone else in the state necessarily that is going to be jumping on board with this and pushing this in D.C. I hope to. I mean, that's a really good idea, actually. This is something that we need to give a letter to our U.S. reps about too. And whoever chairs the committee of oversight in the U.S. House needs to be in on this too, because I think the most noise that we can make with this and getting it out there, the better it will be. I mean, we know Michigan's going to be on the forefront in 26 too with our elections here. I mean, it's going to be the #1 key targeted state once again, because we've got the state house, state senate, attorney general, secretary of state, governor, a U.S. Senate seat. I mean, it's going to be critical, and all eyes will be on us once again. So this is imperative that we get this cleaned up and these investigations can be looked at and hopefully indictments be made, because this has got to stop.
Absolutely.
Well, Representative Lisa McLean is on the oversight committee, so that might be a good place to start from Michigan.
Yes. So I've got some work to do next week now with the letters.
Right. It is interesting too that they admit in this video that we have, excuse me, I got allergies, but that they admit to putting out all these fraudulent registrations, and yet there's been no action by law enforcement against this person who made these admissions. It's just unbelievable, really, because it's not like, and I was telling Patty this, when I started writing in 2004 in St. Louis, where I'm based, they were arresting people for turning in 7 fraudulent registrations. And here we have thousands
Thousands.
And nothing happens. The state leadership, Democrat leadership, buries this. The media buries it. There was just one little article at the time that was out about it until we came back and started publishing more on this. And so it's just unbelievable. This seems like open and shut case to most people who see this.
Oh, it's astounding. And to think like the clerk Ann did the right thing by, involving the police with this. Went to the city of Muskegon first. They turned it over to the state police. The state police turns it over to essentially, our attorney general says, oh, we're going to now close this here and turn this over to the FBI because this is involving more than just Michigan, right? And maybe higher crimes. I'm not sure. But like that was all done to suppress it, to bury it, to draw no attention to this. And it's just it's sickening. Our office sent a letter out last January of 24 to Christopher Wray, the FBI director at the time, obviously under the Biden administration, but still drawing attention to this. Okay, this has been turned over to your agency. Can you please give us some answers on what's going on here? These are the high-level election fraud crimes. I mean,
Yeah.
and nothing. They can't explain anything. And well, it was a couple of months later that they actually do believe we did receive a correspondence saying this is still an ongoing investigation. Okay, well, if it's still ongoing now, U.S. Attorney Pam Bondi, we would love for you to continue on with this and reopen this back up if that's what she needs to do. But
Right.
claim to us it was still ongoing. And of course, our top chief legal person here, Dana Nessel, is going to claim it's out of her hands and case closed, which in fact, we're not so sure it is.
Well, she's already called the reporting that we did on the police reports basically false. And it's interesting to me as a clerk that that Jocelyn Benson, who's now running for governor in the state of Michigan, never told the clerks about this massive statewide voter fraud investigation. Just sent them an email and said, hey, heads up, this clerk just got thousands of false voter registrations dropped off at her office and mailed to her office. She got both packages and personal drop-offs. Be aware that these fraudulent voter registrations are being sent to offices from a hotel in Auburn Hills because, as I said, the clerks that we saw on the Facebook page, there were multiple clerks, were showing photos of the packages that they received. Yet they didn't know that there was a statewide investigation. Why would Jocelyn Benson not tell them?
Yep, you're absolutely right. They knew about this. When I say they, Secretary of Benson's office knew about this, Attorney General knew about this, yet gave no communications out there. That's their job. I mean, how many directives did I get as a clerk from their office? Jonathan Brader, all of these directives, of heads up about this or all the time. Nothing about this. Not a thing. You're exactly right. That right there just shows that they're in on this. They were aware. They understand that, this is corruption 101 at its finest.
Yeah. Well, all I can say is that the state of Michigan should be very grateful that we have somebody in your position right now as the chair of the Election Integrity Commission or committee that's able to look into these crimes that were committed and do something about it or demand that something's done about it, because people are really, I hear it all the time. Like, okay, that's great, but nothing's ever going to be done about it because Dana Nessel is our attorney general. Jocelyn Benson is the Secretary of State, and this will continue to happen, and nothing will happen because of it. And at the time, Merrick Garland was the Attorney General, and so people have really lost hope. And I think the one thing that you've done, Representative Smit, is to give people in the state of Michigan and hopefully across the country hope that something will be done about this, because this goes beyond Michigan. Michigan is the epicenter of the voter fraud registration scandal that was never revealed to the public. But this goes far beyond Michigan. This has implications across the state.
That's exactly right. And it's only appropriate that the Attorney General, U.S. Attorney General, is aware of this. This was a federal election. Doesn't matter if it's a local election, state, but this was a federal election that this nefarious business was going on. And so those are serious crimes, election crimes. You're right. And I will not quit fighting to expose this and to get to the bottom of this and to make sure that our elections are conducted in the most secure way that we can and with integrity, true integrity, and hence the name of our new committee, Election Integrity. That's kind of really triggered the left, but that's okay.
Yeah, who cares?
That's right.
Why that would trigger them?
Yeah. Representative, what can our readers do to help? Do we need to reach out to someone? Would that be helpful? Anything that any ideas you have?
Sure. If there are readers out there and activists and groups out there that have gathered information too, don't hesitate to reach out to our office. It's exactly what we're here to do, to bring forward any sort of evidence that we are finding. We also now, it's key in Michigan, have a robust oversight committee. So with subpoena power, so what we can't accomplish through our committee will be referred over to oversight for subpoena. And so they can reach out to myself, Representative Rachell Smit, gophouse.net. That's how they can look up me and get a hold of my website will be on there, email our office. And Representative J.D. Boyer is the chair of oversight, and he was formerly a county clerk. He and I both served on the elections committee last term. So it was great to have him. He's another huge staunch supporter and ally of ours here and fighter here in Michigan to help with cleaning up our elections and doing everything that we can.
Great. And would you recommend that we also reach out to Pam Bondi and the DOJ?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Maybe
yes.
Kash Patel?
Yes.
Since
And
she's
they're
in charge of the FBI, and
that's right.
they're doing the investigation on this.
Mm-hmm. And they're U.S. reps too and senators. I mean, the more we can draw attention to this and just keep on their radar and understand how big of a problem and an issue that this is, and that the people are going to demand that we do everything that we can to get this right and to fix our elections is what we need from the people.
Great. We'll make sure we do that.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Representative Lisa McLean would be a good one for people in Michigan to reach out to as well.
Yes, I agree.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we're out of time. Thank you for your time this morning. This was excellent. Thank you for having the courage to move forward on this. This is so important. This was one of our largest stories ever at Gateway Pundit. People are very interested in this, and it's because everything is right there. And it's such a shocking story that they've been able to get away with this. And so far they have.
Yep.
So thank you so much, Rachell. We
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And I look forward to coming back maybe once we can get some answers on this and maybe some investigations federally into this. So
That
we'll
would be
see.
great.
We'd love to have you back. Yeah.
That would be great. Don't
Yeah.
forget about us.
Oh, I won't. I won't. Thank you for the work that you guys are both doing as well.
Thank you, Rachell.
Yep.
Thank you. All right.
Bye-bye.